Hi, everyone. Welcome to Intel Alumni event. So the audiences are still coming in, so we're going to do a quick introduction about our event, and especially today, that I'm so proud and excited to host two founder CEOs. One is Intel alum, and another created very high growth, successful business related to Intel. So before we dive into all the good stuff today, I would like to share a little bit about the upcoming events and walk us through a lot of activities that we have done together. Today, the series is called Intel and Inspiration Event Series. It is the first event for this series, and we focus on entrepreneurship and venture capital. So we're going to be doing more and more of this in the year 2021. So as you know, this year we have done a lot of virtual events instead of in-person events, and the feedback that we received, it's been tremendously successful. We are able to get all alumni all around the world to participate, and the organization keeps growing. So in the coming year, we would like to have 4 main themes, of course, not limited to 4 main themes, but let me go through some of them. The first one, which is going to be the one that we focus on today, life after Intel. As you know, once you graduated from Intel, a lot of us went on to work in big enterprises. Some of us become a founder, CEO. Some of us form a venture capital fund, right? Or become an angel investor. So we kind of want to know what we are doing. We still want to stay connected and share what we have learned throughout our career journey and how Intel helped them springboard from one place to the next. So today we really want to focus on entrepreneurship, Intel and Inspiration events. And of course, as you have seen in the year 2020, this year, we have done quite a lot of fireside chats, and we are not done. We're gonna, have notable alumni to come and speak with us from DeepMind at Google, and from autonomous driving company that has been really high growth, early stage, and also late stage companies. And obviously, as we are Intel, we love talking Intel language. We can't get over bums. This year, you probably, if you follow us very closely, you probably have spoken with Jerry Batista and quite a few people in his team talking about what are the latest and greatest thinking at Intel. The 5-year and 10-year roadmap, what it is that would be the Intel vision and the product that is being incubated inside the company. And we love to learn all about that. Of course, followed by the special topics. This year we had AI. We talked about autonomous driving. In the next year, we'll also focus on functional expertise area. For example, what are the best BKM and the KPI practices that alumni at Intel has learned and then carry forward to work in new companies. And of course, upcoming event in the next 2 weeks, we will have social events, including virtual wine tasting. Please register. It's going to happen on December the 3rd, and Susie will talk more about that. We love to have fun. We'll usually have holiday celebrations as well. So please stay tuned. Susie.
Yeah, so let me share my screen. I'm going to just share a bit more detail about the upcoming event. Oh, and you know what? I thought I was able to share my screen. Unfortunately, my screen sharing's not working today. So my friends, be on the lookout. You will be getting an email with the invitation later this afternoon. The event has 2 parts. First of all, we are being hosted, as it were, for a virtual wine tasting at the House Family Vineyards. The house team has put together a list of 4, maybe 5 wines, giving us a 25% off discount. So you may order the wines, and if you order them promptly by the 23rd, you will get them in time for our event on December 3rd. The sommelier will walk you through each of the wines. We can chat amongst each other on the Zoom call. And then afterwards, Intel alumni Mark Jadell, now a noted author of what's called Cozy Mysteries, the Silicon Valley Mystery Series. So Mark will then tell us a little bit about how one becomes a fiction writer. I'll talk a little bit about his journey from Intel to Amazon. And then we're going to have readings, excerpts from the 4 novels. And I can't give away the secret, but there will be some very noted MCM alumni doing some of the readings. So it's definitely worth coming to. If you're interested, again, the invitation will go out today. You can register. The information is also available on the Facebook page right now, if you'd like to go check that out for a little more information. So be on the lookout. And with that, the rest of the talk today from Jeep and our guests is what we've got going.
All right, sounds great. Thank you so much, Susie. And of course, if you have not you registered or follow us on Facebook, please do. We also have LinkedIn, Intel Alumni Group, and of course, we have our own website as well. We post a lot of recordings and events online, and most of the time, or sometimes, we also have a follow-up in terms of video chats, a lot of interviews. Feel free, to join us and follow us. All right, let me share my screen. Back to my screen. Okay, so today, before we dive deep into the 2 founders and 2 companies live after Intel, let us do a quick polling questions. Let's start with the first one. Susie? Let me see here. Sorry, Susie, are we sharing the 2 questions here? Sounds like we have lost her a little bit here. She is not online, so I will come back with the questions later, perhaps after the 2 pitches that we're going to go through. Okay.
Yeah, so, I'm so sorry. I am
here,
but I cannot. The poll will not launch, so I am very sorry.
No, that's okay. This is totally fine. Maybe we'll come back later. There are 2 fun questions, no harm done at all if we don't cover them today.
Jeep?
Yes?
We can ask the questions audibly and have people raise their hands? Is that enabled here?
Or put the answer in the chat pane.
Yeah.
All right, we can do that. That would be great too. Let's do the first one, all right? Okay, let me stop sharing so I can see the hand as well. Okay, so the first question, have you done any angel investment before or any kind of investment? Please raise your hand for yes. Thank you, Scott. Cliff, Howard, I saw. Excellent. Hi, Greenie. I saw you, Ralph. Perfect. Wow. So I would say from a quick scan here, it looks like 40% have done some sort of investment before. Second question, this might be a little bit more challenging. Where are you located? North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Mars, or other? I'm going to go through chat. Thank you. As expected, Europe, mostly in the US. All right. And thank you for dialing in from Europe and South America. I know this is not probably the best time. So let's get going here. Okay. The event today, Intel and Inspiration Series, we will have two companies that we are going to talk to. The first is GamerSafer by Rodrigo Tamellini. He's online with us right now. The second company is 30Tech by Vrinda Kaapoor. She's also online with us right now. And I'm very excited to talk to the two founders. I've been knowing them quite a while. And the format today, as you know, we're gonna let them go and pitch for 10 minutes. Start with Rodrigo first. And after the 10 minutes, I will curate questions. Please feel free to submit your questions through the chat box, and I will be reading them, perhaps asking them a couple of questions afterwards. And then we go on to Vrinda. She will talk about 30Tech for about 10 minutes. And then after that, I'm going to teeing up questions for a couple of questions. And if we have time left, we would like to open up to all of us to interact with the founders and ask direct questions. So this is for all of us to really learn and enjoy, seeing all the ex-Intel and what they're doing today. They also want to learn from us because we have wealth of experience in hardware, software, and services. They want to expand the network. And of course, if there is an opportunity to work with you, if you were interested in, investing and become a part of their journey, they would like to do that as well. Okay. So for us, if you have any further questions, inquiries, or information, I will be available. Please feel free to contact me, reach out to me on my email, or connect with me on LinkedIn. We will also have deeper dive conversations with each of them, and we'll post the information on our LinkedIn and Facebook group. Okay? Now, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and let me introduce Rodrigo. GamerSafer. All right, Rodrigo, are you here right now?
Yes.
Perfect, excellent. So GamerSafer is a mission-driven startup using AI and computer vision to prevent fraud, crimes, and toxic behaviors inside online platforms, especially for gaming. The company helps gamers and esports organizations scale online safety, delivers positive experience to millions of players by offering identity management software to prevent fraud and crime. Rodrigo himself has 20 years of experience leading product, marketing, and business teams by launching over 100 products worldwide and driving billions of revenue. He worked at Intel for 6 years and 11 months and left to start GamerSafer 1 month before his sabbatical. While at Intel, he was the product marketing director of virtual reality, and especially he worked with me on IoT, 5G, and tablet businesses that we scale all around the world in emerging markets. So he himself is a lifelong gamer. His interest in technology began at 12 years old when he started hacking his computer to make it fast enough for the latest games. As founder and CEO of GamerSafer, he's driving his passion and experience to build technologies to foster a positive experience within online games and esports. He has an engineering degree and an MBA. He also received the prestigious Honorable Mention Award from the Brazilian Army. Take it away, Rodrigo.
Hi, Jeep, and thanks everybody. Thanks for having us. It's always great to have the opportunity to reconnect with a fellow Intel community. We are really grateful for being here and share a little bit more about our story at GamerSafer. So gaming is an amazing experience, especially for kids and teens. It's where they learn, have fun, compete, and more than ever, where they socialize. Online games is this new place where they hang out with their friends. We are gamers, our kids are gamers, so we know for a fact that safety is the most important thing that we have to grant in those spaces. That's why we created GamerSafer, to create a safe space and foster positive and fair play experiences to millions of players worldwide. Why this is important? It's not working. Why this is so important? Yes, games are struggling with frauds, toxicity, and crimes. Bullying, harassment, hate speech, sexism, racism, identity theft, scams, bots, fake accounts, cheaters, not to mention rumors and predators, are present inside every single online platform. This is, of course, is very severe, but not only severe, but often. 81% of players experience harassment inside popular games in the past year. Of course, this is very damaging for families and players, but also this is hurting the industry bottom line, because 23% of those players are leaving games or playing less time, right? So user churn, credibility, and financial loss is part of the industry due to those problems. We did analyze the root problems, the root cause of the problem, and we identified two major drivers for that. First is the extreme level of anonymity that we have inside the online games right now, driving the lack of accountability. And second, the way that players are matched online. So right now, the major games just take into consideration things like a skill level and the latency to the server to randomly put players together. And this usually triggers several conflicts that drives bad experiences. So we came up with this solution, a very unique solution, which is a cross-platform gaming ID, which help us to verify and authenticate players before they don't join a match. This context that we have around players allow us to create this user-specific safety protocol and connect that with the matching algorithms from the major platforms to drive a better experience for all of them. And we do all of this compliant with every single data privacy regulation out there. How that works is pretty simple. In 3 steps, we can deliver a safer and fair play experiences to our users. First, we enrich the user profile with verifiable data. Second, during the login process, the online tournament platform or the game itself, right? With a selfie in less than 1 second using computer vision and AI, we do all the player authentication process and the data anonymization. We convert this in this specific user-specific safety protocol and send this straight to the matching algorithms from the major game platforms. With a better context around players, they improve the way the players are matched and eradicate or minimize the problems that I described before. By the end of the presentation, I can give you a quick demo, like a 1 minute. But in a nutshell, what this means, let me give an example. I have this pool of players, 100 players between 13 to 16 years old. Why should I match with them a 4 years old player? It's just an open door for child exploitation scenarios, for example. Another example is I have this competitive female player, and I have this another player that was previously reported by being sexist. If I match them, she will probably win, and he will basically screw up her experiences. So those small details about user context can make a massive change in the landscape of games. If you are tracking what's going on in the world right now with the pandemic, gaming is all over, right? So it was already a huge market, and this keeps growing. Those numbers over here is before COVID, so for sure they boost a lot. I just want to really focus on the pain points. How big is the problem for the industry? So there is an estimation that toxicity represents about a $7 billion problem for the industry, okay? Basically related to user churn and lack of engagement. There's another problem related to a huge market for stolen and fake accounts, mostly used by criminals and scammers. It's about $1 billion industry. And there's a big question mark about what's the real cost of reputation, regulatory, and fraud-related risks for major platforms. So, of course, we always like to think that online platforms and games will do what's the best for the players in the sake of deriving great experiences. But what we know and what we notice is this is really hurting the bottom line. So they are more willing and more proactively pursuing for solutions to tackle the problems. and keep their business growing and profitably. Okay. Our target customers are game publishers and developers, mostly the ones building games with a strong user-to-user interaction. They have hundreds of millions of players active on a monthly basis. And on the other side, we're also working with esports organizations, online tournament platforms, federations, associations, and varsity-driven organizations. All of them has a strong need for the products that we drive. And we basically came out of why we work with them is basically to scale our impact to the most users as we can. So it's a B2B software as a service business model. And on the publisher side, since they have this massive user base, we charge an active fee per user per month per game. So we are talking about cents, millions of users. We have a robust revenue streams coming out of them. And on esports platform, usually they have a more qualified user base. On the quantitative perspective, it's not that relevant. So we usually apply a monthly fees and revenue share opportunities. But what really makes me excited about our business model and what we are building over here is our long-term vision. So we want to become this first online credit score company for the gaming segment, right? So we want to leverage this user understanding that we have to first and foremost deliver our core product, which is a safety as a service. But we understand there are many other revenue streams that we can ignite out of this understanding, just like a regular credit score company, right? So CPI conversions, e-wallets, freemium services, coaching, training, and many other engagement opportunities for brands and publishers, okay? Whenever we look to the competitive landscape, yes, there are a bunch of identity management systems out there for different industry verticals, but none of them are really gaming specific. So just doing authentication, but not translating this into specific user protocol and connecting this with the algorithm of matching is not will not really solve the problem. On the other hand of the competitive landscape, we have the status quo of the existing tools, which is a combination of chat filters, human moderation, and AI-assisted monitoring solutions. The major problem with those solutions is they are mitigation-driven, so they are not focusing on prevention. What those solutions are doing right now, they are tracking billions of interactions on a daily basis, written and spoken in different languages, and trying to understand what's a potential damaging interaction and trying to intervene. So usually it's not timely, usually it's very several false positives, and this is not working. That's why we have the problem as we have nowadays. So we see ourselves as the first scalable solution that's focused on prevention. So we want the problem to stop the problem from happening in the first place. About the team, I think Chip already told a lot of nice words about me. I'm the product guy. Yes, and I'm a gamer myself as well, right? My co-founder is a second-time entrepreneur, and she came from the social impact world. So we became this power couple. So gaming, product, entrepreneurship, social impact. And we check this, of course, we see a massive business opportunity over here. That's why we drop everything that we were doing to pursue this dream. But it's a very mission-driven one. We are players ourselves. Our kids are gamers as well. And the more we learn about the problems, the more we want to do something about it. And of course, we are very lucky to be supported by a pool of talents that's making our dreams to grow and to drive this massive transformation. In terms of milestones, we are about 18 months on the road. We were incubated inside UC Berkeley Skydeck, listed by Forbes among the top 5 university accelerators in the US. We receive grants from Headstream Accelerator. And yes, we finally have some customers, which is great. So on the sports side, and even on gaming, right? So we are just finalizing as we speak the integration with a major game, like a really big game, call it Minecraft. They are integrating our technology as we speak. So we are super excited for the next and upcoming months. And more than that, we have a really vibrant pipeline of customers. We have at least 10 deals under negotiation right now, and some of them with pretty big platforms. So we really are in that very unique and special moment of fast growing on the company side. And that's why we recently decided to open our pre-seed round. We are pursuing 12 months run rate, mostly, and the money is mostly to support this team that I showed before and grow with this a little bit. What we do expect is for the next 6 to 7 months to really prove our product market fit, keep pushing more relevant customers through our pipeline, design great white papers and case studies showing how our technology is unique and different and how can we drive value back to the industry. And of course, prepare the product for its scalability and try to drive this to hundreds of millions of players. Support needed, yes. Of course, we are open for investments, but always super open to introductions, to support, to advices, and that's why we would love to lean back into this community. As I mentioned before, right? This is a very mission-driven one for us, and we would love to have all you supporting this vision and making online safety a fundamental right. That's what we believe. Safety should be a fundamental right no matter where you are, and we are the ones that is pushing this into the online game specifically.
All right, sounds great. Thank you, Rodrigo. When, right now we are waiting for some of the questions, so perhaps I'm going to kick off asking you the questions first, okay?
Okay.
And
maybe if you
can...
want it, we can make like a quick demo, maybe? I don't know what you think.
Yeah, sure. How long is the demo? I think that would be great for people to see.
Yeah, I think it's just like 1 minute, super fast. So
all right,
let me just share my screen here. So let me know when you can see my screen.
And for the audience, feel free to submit your questions through a chat box if you like.
Yeah, let me see if it works. Sometimes the connectivity is not the best one, right? So basically, the way that our solution works is we are integrating into the login process of the platforms. Yeah, somehow my connection is not really helping me here. So let's go through the questions deep, and if the connectivity comes back.
Yeah, I like when you mention the word demo. This is very Intel. Every single, most of the meetings we had, we would have some sort of demo, either in person or online. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So maybe let's start with a lighthearted question first. Okay. I learned based on your bio that you left Intel a month right before your first sabbatical. Tell us what happened.
I think it was an expected scenario, right? So that's not very common. I was eager to take my sabbatical, but we just fell in love and were passionate about the mission, right? And want to get started as soon as possible. We see that the window of opportunity over there. And more than that, we were very confident that we would be able to join an expressive accelerator here in the Valley, right? And usually the timing would really requires us to be full-time on it. And so we decided to skip sabbatical. And that was a very good bet on our end, because by the end of the day, we were approved that at Skydeck. Skydeck in our batch has like a 1.6% acceptance rate, and we were approved. So I think that's also the good things at Intel. So our PowerPoint skills were good enough to secure us a good spot over there.
Yeah.
And that was the kickoff of all this great journey.
Absolutely. Well, now there are a couple of questions coming in already. So I would like to ask you perhaps about the customer side first. Okay. So as we heard on your presentation, your traction is very impressive, given that you are only an 18-month-old company, and you were able to have the contract signed. So can you share a little bit more about your customers and perhaps your customer acquisition strategy?
Sure. Well, our first customer was on esports side. I think the competitive scene is really concerned about cheating. Most of this ecosystem is fueled by sponsorships right now. So having credibility and reputation is super important for all those platforms. So we were able to secure a very influential esports federation out of Europe to use our platform as authentication element for the whole competitive scene in their country. And we are expanding these traditional federations. this is where it was interesting because we were able to explore some new business models like a revenue share and these kind of things. So it was a very refreshing and interesting approach. And they even put a lot of things in our roadmap in terms of in the future features they want to explore. I think on the publisher side, as I briefly mentioned on the presentation, we were able to find a path to integrate our solution on Minecraft. Minecraft has hundreds of millions of active users on a monthly basis. They have several software versions for Minecraft, so we are specifically delivering that for the Java version. That should have something about 80 to 90 million of active users on a monthly basis. And this is a more legacy solutions on Minecraft. So they don't really have a good security and safety tools. And the community really loved how we were tackling the problem. We opened a partner program to bring server owners and go to pilots and trials before we make the official release. And in less than 2 days, you were able to fill all the spots for that. So we have a lot of influential servers working with us on that, helping us to craft and to tailor-made the algorithms and the permission systems to really drive a major impact. And I think that's the cool piece, right? So part of this partner program has a lot of gives and gets, which include access to data. So this will help us to not only make a difference for their specific audience, but also to craft the white papers and case studies to show the industry that, yes, there is a better way of preventing those problems.
So related to that, perhaps, I'm going to ask you the last question for this session before we go to the next presentation. The rest of the questions we will cover towards the end of the hour.
Okay.
So there was one question that is coming up, and the audience is knowledgeable about the gaming industry. The question is related to your customer acquisition approach, which is your product, right? This is a SaaS, which is a software as a service company. It's a B2B type company.
Yeah.
So can you explain a little bit about how your team address harassment in the design of your product? And more than the majority of the users are actually female gamers too. So can you please touch a little bit on how you address it through your technology and platform?
Yeah, I think one of the major issues that we have within the industry right now is the lack of accountability. So people misbehave because they are pretty sure that nothing will really happen to them. And even in a more severe case, whenever a player do something really terrible and is banned from the community, nothing really prevents them to create a new user and come back 5 minutes later. So with our technology, we put an end on this vicious cycle, because once someone really goes that far away and not following the rules, they are moved to a block list. So they cannot really come back with a new user. So there's two angles of that. Make sure that we are purging and pushing out who is really toxic, right? And the study shows that it's about 5% of players reported are really, really toxic, and the community doesn't want them back. But 95% of players are not consistently toxic. So people say, yeah, they just had a bad day. What we like to say, they had a bad matching. So that's why we like to work in these two ways of the problem statement, because it's also about providing a better matching and also driving accountability. If they understand that the access to the game they love could be jeopardized based on their behavior, we can really have a fundamental change and shift in the way that people behave on each other in the online environment. So that's a little bit the hypothesis behind the technology. And of course, using computer vision, we can make sure that we can enforce this kind of community guidelines back to the players.
Sounds good. So one thing I would encourage you and co-founder Maria is also here with us today to think about is related to your product technology and also the customer acquisition, even though it's B2B type strategy. How do you reach your end customer? How do you acquire them? So just for you to think about, I'm going to have to switch gear a little bit to 30 Tech right now for an interest of time, and then we'll come back to you when we have time towards the hour. Okay?
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Hi, Vrinda.
Hi, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Appreciate it. So let me introduce Vrinda and her company very quickly. Her company is Third Detect, okay? And this is very close to Intel Heart, all right? It is a CMOS image sensor company. And this is the company, and Vrinda herself has just graduated from UC Berkeley Skydeck program, okay? And this is how we got to know each other. And I was very impressed by her technology and also the trajectory and the roadmap that she and her co-founder has created. Third Detect has worked at some of the world's leading centers for image sensors, such as Philips Research, IMEC in Belgium, and Delft University of Technology in the Netherlands. So over the past few years, the team has designed more than 30 ASICs. The expertise is in designing niche pixel architectures, and the company has owned many patents and publications. Vrinda Kaapoor is the founder CEO of Third Detect startup. She is an evolutionary biologist who has spent her career in healthcare technology, working with government and private sector, private healthcare institutions to bring new technology to the patient workflows. Please take it away.
Thank you so much, Jeep, for that introduction, and thank you so much for having us here today. We are Third Eye Tech, and as Jeep mentioned, we are an ASIC design company that focuses on image sensors. One of our first products that we're taking to market right now is our low light imaging sensor. Applications of low light imaging are huge. They go everywhere from the military and space to DNA sequencing and digital PCR, all the way into security cameras, augmented reality systems today, and machine vision applications, including autonomous vehicles. But there's a challenge in night vision. The past 10 years has seen mostly incremental innovation. We've not seen anything really change in the industry. And the products are not being able, the products that exist are starting to tape out at what the users or what the final applications of these sensors are looking for. Low light sensors typically have very slow frame rates. Thermal sensors exist, but they're able to detect and sometimes not identify objects in the scene. Process modification currently used makes sensors expensive. And the biggest challenge, though, is that there aren't any really true high dynamic range sensors that work equally well in very low and very high light. I know this audience doesn't need this introduction, but we are an image sensor company. We work in the domain where we help to innovate in the pathway of the light to signal. What we did and what we did really differently was is a patent pending product. So typically, if you think about low light or night vision devices, the ability to see in low light depends on your signal to noise ratio, the amount of signal you have over the noise floor. CMOS has done pretty well in the past couple of years as technology has matured and going from 23 electrons into 350 nanometer opto process to I think almost 2 or 3 electrons in the current 180 nanometer and lower processes. But the amplification, a way to improve the signal to noise ratio, has always been a challenge. If you look at the beginning of night vision, products like image intensifiers or electron bombardment required some sort of an external material to create that amplification. The challenge with external materials is that amplification is not linear. On the other hand, CCDs became a go-to night vision product, having excellent visibility in very low light environments. But they come with their own limitations, very high power consumptions, also very slow frame rates. What we tried to do is take the CCD amplification technique, which is in pixel, and apply it in conventional CMOS. So conventional CMOS products, like scientific CMOS, they worked on dual column gain amplifiers. The challenge is, as you read out the entire signal chain and you have the amplifier at the end of the column, you're amplifying the pixel signal, the pixel noise, and the input referred noise at the same rate. So there's no effective improvement in the SNR. What we did, on the other hand, was we added an extra transistor right before the source follower inside the pixel. What that allows us to do is amplify before the pixel noise or the input preferred noise gets added. As a result, the ultimate impact is a much higher signal to noise ratio. Our product, so the amplification that we use in the very low light domain gives us a 30 dB enhancement in the dynamic range in the low light region. And when we flip that over and we can use that amplification algorithm to compress, it gives us another 30 dB enhancement in the highlight region, giving us an effective dynamic range that's improved by almost 60 dB. The other thing is we don't use increased exposure times to capture more photons. Our integration times are in microseconds. Our test chips have been tested out at 150 frames per second, and we're fairly confident scaling that to about 250 frames per second. So the military is a great user of night vision devices, and the US military in particular uses a night vision integrated performance model in the C5ISR Center at the US Army to test and to, even before they see products, to be able to look at sensor specifications and model what that product would really look like. This is a curve which shows the probability of identification of an object versus the range to target. And they compared Third Eye Tech's product with the current state-of-the-art CMOS and CCD products that are currently fielded by the military. And there is a drastic improvement in the identification capability that's being provided to the warfighter. So this was a really nice, and it was a fantastic validation of what we've been trying to market about our product. We often get asked what the difference is between low light products and infrared. So these are just representative images to show the difference between the different types of images. A really great use case is in night vision augmented reality products. The military is becoming a huge user of this, as well as in the commercial space. From the military perspective, for example, they're looking for sensors that function at high frame rates, that work in extreme lighting conditions. So having a single sensor that's able to go from day to night, but also a sensor that won't get blinded if bright light has been flashed at an operator. Obviously, having rapid and efficient target identification, so it has to be a digital night vision product and something that can go from day through twilight into starlight. Twilight's an interesting challenge because it's interesting to know that a lot of sensors actually go blind in twilight. We see a huge potential in the image sensor market. Our initial focus is on the soldier and night vision sort of device market. We've also started working with the United States Air Force and other commercial companies on testing out our prototypes for small and nano satellites. Again, a great use case where they're looking for low power consumption products that can replace current CCD detectors. We're also already in conversation with some of the large life science companies to see if they're interested, and we're seeing interest on their side in using newer products to get better functionality, and in autonomous systems in various different stages of vehicles, robotics, including space robotics. So we're seeing some really interesting applications coming out there. For us, the holy grail would be if we're able to get into consumer technology, but that's a long-term aspiration, and it would require us to have the right kind of strategic partnerships with some of the larger companies. We've had some great traction so far. So Third Eye Tech has not raised any external investment apart from a safe note from Berkeley Skydeck. We have been fully funded by developmental contracts from the military. So the Indian Army and the Indian Air Force are customers. We also recently won a contract vehicle from the US Air Force. Over the next 6 months, we're going to be exploring the use case for space more definitely. And over the next 12 months, we plan to have our first product grade chips available in the market so that we can start to focus on those initial markets and create strategic partnerships. That's one of the reasons we're really excited to be here today. It's not just about investment, but it's also about having the mentorship and support of the Intel community as we look to help, look for advice to help us grow and scale our business. As Jeep mentioned earlier on, we've designed over 30 ASICs. These are some of our state-of-the-art technologies, where we will work to commercialize sequentially. We have test chips for very high speed imaging that actually operate at over 1,000 frames per second in our labs today. We have developed ASICs for very high background light subtraction, so we can subtract out 125 kilolux of light shown directly on the sensor, not just in the ambient atmosphere. We've created some interesting pixel compression algorithms, which would allow us to help in data transmission in sort of a wireless environment. We've created a fantastic CMOS sensor range detector using our high background light subtraction ASIC, because one of the challenges with CMOS is how quickly it gets, and the challenges for range detection is how quickly background light is able to saturate it in an outdoor environment. We're working on some really large format ASICs, so 50 and 100 megapixel. And we've also delivered a radiation hardened ASIC to the Indian Space Research Organization, and it's going to be used on one of their upcoming missions. This is our founding team. My co-founder and colleague Vinayak, who's our head of business development and strategy, is also on this call. Our CTO is Dr. Mukul Sarkar, as Jeep had mentioned. Dr. Sarkar spent a large part of his career at Philips Research in Eindhoven before moving to TU Delft and IMIC for his PhD and his postdoc. He came back to India in 2012 and started the first image sensor research team in the entire country. Until date, it is the only image sensor research team in the entire country. Third Eye Tech is a spin-off of that team. So we're really excited to be able to take some of all, his career's work and work to commercialize it. We've got a fantastic advisory board. Steve Glazer is of the former SVP of Xilinx. Professor Alberto is probably one of the most well-known names in the semiconductor industry as a co-founder of both Cadence and Synopsys. Vikram J. Singh was former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for South and Southeast Asia, so he brings to us that sort of DoD experience that we need as we're building this out. And Bruce Burkhoff is Chairman LTA and is former board member at LG Displays. So that's all for my presentation. I would love to take some questions. My email address is on the screen in case anyone would like to reach out to me. Thank you so much for having us here today. And thank you for spending time with us.
Thank you, Vrinda. So as expected, this is, the topic that a lot of us are very interested in. And thank you for the questions that submitted through the chat box publicly and privately to me. So perhaps let me ask one of the questions for an expert in this area as well. So the key, one of the questions is, are you working with leaders in the physical security arena, such as CCTV, access control, C3, C4? Can you comment on that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've had some strong interest from some of the large majors, both from the OEMs themselves as well as from tier one manufacturers. So we're seeing very strong interest in all of these, but we're now looking to be able to convert that interest into, prototyping efforts and pilots so that we can take it forward. That being said, we would love introductions that would help us take this journey forward. If you have any in mind, we would really appreciate that.
So this is a foundry topic that you and I, Vrinda, have been talking quite a bit about throughout
Yes.
our advisory office at Berkeley. So
Yes.
which foundry, if you may share, which foundry are you using for the CMOS chip?
So we had the privilege through Berkeley Skydeck, being one of their chip track companies, to help us get access to TSMC. So we're really excited about that. We'll be taping out our first wafer. We're not going in just for an MPW now. We're taping out our first wafer for our first prototype products at the end of January. So TSMC is our first choice of foundry. We also, being in this business and TSMC being a busy fab, we have to have redundancy in our foundry relationships. So we have a couple of others that we're working with as well.
Okay. Next question. Tell us a little bit more about your fabrication technology requirements, such as transistor performance.
So the really interesting thing about this product is that we require no foundry support, no process modification from the foundry. We use their pixels as they are, and that was done deliberately. We're also using a 180 nanometer process, which means it's a low-cost technology. Some of the newer wafers are so expensive, but 180 nanometer, even at TSMC, is a pretty cheap process. The idea is to be able to use conventional CMOS and produce that kind of functionality. One of the things I'd like to add over here, our main advantage, or the thing that was able to really hit it out of the park for us, was our conversion gain. So typically in CMOS, you see a conversion gain of anywhere between 30 and 60 microvolts per electron. Our first silicon results, that was 2 years ago, produced a conversion gain of 300 microvolts per electron. And our newest simulations, which is hopefully the chip that we're going to tape out in January, has a conversion gain. Well, the simulations show that we would have been able to achieve a conversion gain of 1 millivolt per electron, all using conventional CMOS without any fab support or any process modification from the fab.
Okay, so so for the audience, if we didn't get all the questions answered to you today, please feel free to contact me. I will be able to help answer any questions. And as I mentioned in the beginning of this conversation, is that we know it's going to be a lot of interest. These are, you know, we call them moonshot. They are doing really well and gain traction rapidly in the marketplace. And, you know, we would love to stay connected. So, and joining with us, so we have Maria as well from GamerSafer. She's the co-founder alongside Rodrigo. We also have Vrinda. If you can, you know, hop on the video chat to say hi to everyone. We also working with them very closely during Skydeck incubation. So just so you know, I receive a lot of questions. I receive a lot of questions privately as well as publicly. If you can help answer through chat box, that would be great as well. But don't worry, we're going to have more deep dive and we'll share more information to you.
Yeah.
So right now, we are at the top, near the top of the hours. I would like to take the opportunity to actually open the forum to all of us. We are happy to stay a little bit over time, perhaps until 1:10 or 1:15 PST. If you are available, stick around so you can interact with the founding teams directly. Okay.
Yeah, and I think there were a couple of questions I saw in the chat box. If we have time, I can quickly hit them out of the bat already, or Jeep, as you suggest.
Yeah, so I would like to open the forum, perhaps to the audience, since, you know, we didn't also get to answer key questions to GamerSafer. But at this point, feel free to stay engaged, or you know, feel free to stay in touch with us offline. Okay. So maybe before we go back to Vinayak, I would like to go back to Rodrigo a little bit, since there are a few questions regarding the end user. Thank you, Cliff, for the clapping hand. We appreciate it. Rodrigo, please share a little bit about, and Maria, you are here now. Share a little bit about, you know, what is the end user acquisition strategy? We know that you are a B2B SaaS company. Yeah. So how are you gonna create adoption or, you know, massive traction in the market?
Yeah, I think the overall strategy here is really leverage the game platforms on our favor, right? So once they understand our technology, really help them to minimize user churn and navigate better this very challenging area of toxicity. What we are discussing with those platforms is finding ways for them to incentivize players to use the solution, right? Whenever we discuss this on esports, for example, several platforms are making this mandatory. So if you want to compete, if you want to run for this prize pool on esports, you have to be verified first. So over there, we see a more mandatory adoption from the platform to the player. And on the mainstream gaming, I think this is slightly different. I think platforms are more willing to incentivize it. So they will use in-game techniques to do that. So giving access to early access to new games or new phases, some special items, customization items, and these kind of things to incentivize players to go through this path. There are a lot of great questions here on the Q&A. Some of those topics that we tackle are super sensitive, so it's really hard to do like a very short answer for some of them. But yeah, great to hear the comments that we're seeing here.
Yeah, so maybe another question that came in. I got a couple of threads on this around your IP. Okay, so can you please share a little bit more about your IP protection strategy and the current status on where you are?
We had a provisional patent, and we decided not to pursue that yet. We will apply for a new version on probably late Q2 21, because we have a new IP on the computer vision side of our solution. So what we do on the computer vision side is much more than doing the user authentication. There are several new trends that are super important, most of them related to age verification. So regulations are evolving on the way that platforms need to assure user age before giving them access to their services. This is led by UK regulations and policies and being followed by many countries in Europe, Australia. Here in the US, usually we are a little bit late runners, but this will be for sure something upcoming. And our new IP will be really the state of the art of the age verification for youth audiences. Usually, every single computer vision solution out there for age verification, they are very biased and they are not really precise. And we have a way of making this way better. And this will be the scope of our patent approach by Q2.
Okay, so I would like to, give you a last question before we switch gear to 30 Tech, if that's okay. Sure. One quick question on online, because harassment is on gaming especially is quite a prevalent problem in the ecosystem. So how do you actually differentiate different kind of crimes, harassment, especially the differentiation between harassment and other type of behaviors?
Yeah. Well,
for example, just trash talking or others. And in some cases, as we learn from news, sorry for interrupting, we learned from the news that, there are some, financial fraud as well towards, teenagers. How do you address that?
Yeah, this is a very serious problem. And again, going back to statistics, right? 81% of players were harassed inside platforms the last year. 35% of these harassments were sexual related. So this is severe and a major challenge. What we believe, again, going back to the root causes, right? The lack of accountability is one of the major drivers for that. So we don't really believe in a segregation strategy. So where boys plays with boys, girls plays with girls. I think people need to learn how to coexist. What you want to make sure is the platforms has ways to enforce things. Enforce safety, reinforce good behavior, and enforce our community guidelines. So there are several variants of the problem. So, and we don't even mention that. So right now, whenever we list the total list of potential hazards of online interactions is over 25 different items with several caveats. So it's a multidimensional problem. But most of them are really going to the same point. People cannot be held accountable about what they do. And there are several studies showing that people, whoever misbehave online, usually don't do that if they're looking straight on your face, right? Looking into your eyes. And that's really related to this guardrail of the social fabric that we want to bring up to them. And if they misbehave, yes, they just won't be welcomed anymore. Of course, in parallel with the enforcement, what we believe is super important, specifically for youth audiences, bring more parental engagement, and our technology allows that too. So parents could have a more visibility about what's going on with their kids, because they can be the bullied or they can be the bullier sometimes, right? And we have, I think the industry is working that very closely, and we are supporting that, also helping to provide more education and awareness about those problems, having those hard discussions, and really show that we need to do something about it, because it's getting a dimension that's super concerning.
Thank you. So for the rest of the questions for GamerSafer, please feel free to contact me I know that there are a lot of private questions coming through the chat box, and we'll help address that through video chat and one-on-one. Okay. Now back to Vrinda, and where is Vinayak? Right there. Excellent. So let me start with a high-level questions first from Cliff. You know, he is our notable alumni, and one of the questions that we like to ask is, what kind of margin do you expect to hit with your product?
The great part is the low cost of fabrication and the price of the competitors' products leave a pretty large margin on the table. Even if we price ourselves 30% or 40% cheaper than our competitors, we're still, each sensor is still in the couple of $1,000 price range. So it's a pretty healthy margin. The beauty of using a 180 nanometer process for fabrication, with very little tech support required from the fab, so we're not adding to our costs, means the margins are very healthy.
So related to that, so what is your timeline for fundraising?
So Vinayak, do you want to take that?
No, go for it.
So on fundraising, we're actually, the great part about not having raised funds and supporting the company on contracts so far is that we have not had to raise funds, and we have about 18 months worth of runway from just our current contracts, including our mask sets. What we're looking for in our investors is partners to help us grow and scale our company. So if we meet like-minded people who share the same vision with us, we're happy to talk at any time. Otherwise, we had planned on raising funding after we get some more traction in the non-military commercial domain, and where we actually get it to a point where we can start to scale to volumes.
So please feel free to stay engaged, even if the company is not looking for the immediate funding yet. Of course, your network and advice, since you are veterans in this ecosystem, are very helpful to them. But of course, GamerSafer, Rodrigo, and Maria, they are currently raising, and they are about more than 40% filled already. So the round is closing very quickly. So Vrinda, perhaps if I could touch a little bit, since your introduction said that you are actually a biologist by training.
Yes. Yes.
So tell us a little bit, how and why did you come up with this idea?
So that's really interesting. I was working, the last 5 years or 7 years of my career before we started Third Eye Tech was all about innovation in healthcare. And what I started to feel was that there's a lot of innovation in healthcare happening here in India, but there's no innovation in what I spent my entire education career focused on, which was on the genetics and life sciences and the evolutionary biology part of it. And that's why around the time that I met Vinayak, and we started thinking that, so at that time, one of the first things we started thinking of was digital pathology. And it just seemed so cumbersome to use these large whole slide scanners to take an image of a single slide. And the processes are slow, the scanners were really expensive. So we went hunting for somebody who could come up with a solution. And that's when we met our co-founder, Mukul. And that's when the whole world of CMOS image sensors expanded to us. And we started to learn about them. And we started to realize that there's so much value in what he's been working on and what we could come together and do. And what it just so happened that at the time, the Indian government started this huge push to promote startups. So that's how we started working in government and security. But because my interest has always been in life sciences, and interestingly, when Mukul was at Philips Research, he was working on some of their life sciences products. Our natural aim is to keep converging back to that, which is why we're in talks with some of the major life sciences companies to test out and use our products when we have them next year.
Yep, thank you. So any other final thoughts you would like to share before we close this meeting today?
Yeah, I think one, if I may, there was one question I saw on what about the extra transistor? And I think maybe Vrinda, you can answer that, that doesn't sort of create any power hungry sensors, etc. Because I'm assuming that was what the question was alluding to.
Yeah, so that the extra transistor is the only real difference in this process. Other than that, it's a standard 180 nanometer TSMC pixel that we'll be using. One question we often get asked is, by adding an extra transistor inside each pixel, there's going to be a huge surge in the power requirement. But we created very specific low power circuitry to reduce that extra demand. So our test chips, there's been no change in the power consumption of the sensor in spite of this extra transistor.
Rodrigo, Maria, any final words of thoughts before we close the forum for today?
Well, thanks so much for the space and time. As we mentioned, we are really leaning into this community to help us drive a massive impact. So advice, networking, support, investment, we are all over it. Glad to share more details about what we are doing. And yes, I think as a society, I think we really have to pursue these kind of things. I think the recent politics around the world show us how important it is to secure free speech. And we are really glad to push this to this last mile, which is the new generation. So looking forward to your help on that.
Thank you, Vrinda. Thank you, Rodrigo, for coming and share with us on your journey and exciting companies that you have created. Thank you, Vinayak. Thank you, Maria, for joining us as well. Everybody, this is very exciting, and please stay in touch, jeep.kline@gmail.com. Stay tuned for our future events. See you. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Jeep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.